We got to hear from the coaching staff this past week, and a lot of Husker fans are liking what they're hearing. Hi, I'm Adrian Muller, and this is episode 26 of the Cobsmacked Podcast. This is a Nebraska Football podcast where we cover the Husker season and team news as it progresses throughout the year. Every video episode is uploaded to YouTube, and the audio versions can be found on Apple, Google, and Spotify. If you enjoy the content, please consider leaving a like and following. Otherwise, we'll get right into it. So the initial thoughts after hearing the introductory press conferences with the new coaches, we're going to kind of get into each one individually and kind of the feeling that I'm getting as the coaching hires are being announced. So the first one up that I watched was Mark Whipple. Right off the bat, you could tell he was experienced. He was dropping a lot of big names, both from the NFL during his time with the Steelers and the Eagles and things like that, and then also just the massive amount of coaching experience he has across college football. He does have a ton of connections through those jobs that he's had, not just from the Big Ten. He mentioned like Brett Bielema, Ryan Day. He's had coaching experience that he's dealt with all over the place, not just in the Big Ten, but all over the country. So when he got the job here, he got a lot of contacts. He was kind of reaching out. People were reaching out to him as well, both coaches around the country and then also players that he's had in the past too. He mentioned that Ben Roethlisberger talked to him. Kenny Pickett, he talked to him as well. Just a lot of guys. You could tell that he has a lot of relationships around college football, and that seemed to be nice to hear. He also seems very excited to merge ideas, not just with Scott Frost. He mentioned talking to Mickey Joseph as well, and I believe Mickey Joseph's going to be heavily involved with the passing game side of things because he is going to be bringing in a lot of talent on the outside, and so that relationship between the quarterbacks and the wide receivers is going to be more important in this offensive scheme than I think in previous years, but he's going to get everybody involved. So he mentioned bringing in different aspects of Frost's game, of his game, kind of Mickey's experience at LSU, but getting everybody and the players themselves included in on that. He did mention that he didn't think the team was too far off. He said walking around the facilities and things, he didn't feel like he was walking around a 3-9 team. He didn't feel like he was interacting with a team that was lacking confidence or lacking direction, that type of thing. And one of my favorite things that he did talk about in the presser, as I mentioned in the last episode, as we talked about him getting hired and kind of the things that I thought he brought to the table was his ability to plan the offense around the tools that he has, not kind of forcing a square into a round hole type of thing. He starts with honest feedback from the players, especially the QB. I'll try to pull some clips up here, but he has one where he talks about just getting feedback and how that influences what he plans for.
And then being honest with me as a play caller is I don't need really yes men there. I need you to tell me the truth. What do you like and don't? I have enough stuff. Scott's got enough stuff, so we want to gear it to those guys. So when the play comes in, they feel confident and they can exude that to the other 10 teammates on the field.
And then also he talks about fitting the scheme to the player, not one size fits all. So I'll have another clip here.
I try to gear the offense to the quarterback, and everybody's different. So if the second guy that goes in, he's not going to have the same plays as the first guy. So I coach those guys separate in the spring.
But he kind of talks about how the play calling can switch from the starting quarterback to the backup, whether you have a dual threat quarterback or a pocket passer. You need to adjust what he's comfortable running, what he's confident in running versus the next guy up. So I like that he's able to not push guys into a scheme that he already has, firmly in place, that he's able to kind of mold it around what they feel good doing, what they feel confident in doing. And that's just better for everybody all around. That gives you more confidence in calling plays that that the player is confident running himself. So another thing that he mentioned kind of at the end of that clip that might spark a little bit of controversy among the fan base is that he mentioned that a lot of the great quarterbacks that he's worked with, a lot of the great competitors he's worked with in his coaching experience, he used the term pricks. He said they're not nice guys, they're pricks. And I think I understand where he's coming from with that, and it's kind of an interesting counter to what Adrian was for the program. He was always a class act. He was always very calm. He never let his emotions kind of get the better of him. But I think what he's trying to say is like that competitive spirit, they're not going to be nice on the field. When they're out there, they're going to be monsters. They are going to, let that aggression and competitive spirit kind of take over the game for them within reason. They're not going to blow a gasket and do things they wouldn't normally do, but they're not going to be nice. They're going to be out there and they're going to expect the best from everybody. And they're not going to just, okay, you tried your best, that type of thing. They're going to want the best. They're going to expect the best from every other person on the field. Going over to Mickey Joseph, you could tell right off the bat he was passionate, he's enthusiastic, and he's full of energy. He feels a sense of pride. Like, it doesn't feel like he's been away from the program very long. It seems like he's already readjusting to Nebraska and being in Lincoln again. He did mention a lot of things have changed since he's been here as a player, both in the city and as the facilities and that type of thing. But you can still tell that he has a great deal of pride in the program and in Nebraska in general. He talked about recruiting. He talked about, kind of pushing guys, what he expects of his players and how he's going to push them to be better athletes and competitors themselves. They asked for some, notable recruiting stories, and he did have the one with Jamar Chase where he said he was nearly on the phone for nearly 5 hours just to be sure that he signed with LSU in the morning. He said that he was on the phone with him till like 2:30 in the morning because Auburn was going to come knocking on his door potentially and try to snag him away at the last minute. So he stayed on the phone until 2:30 in the morning, and then he said I made sure to call him at 7 o'clock in the morning to make sure he got up to sign those papers. So, I mean, you can tell that he's going to go to great lengths to get the talent that he finds. He mentioned, you have to seek out that talent. Whether or not they're rated or not, I don't think that really matters to him. He wants to find guys that he can also develop as well. And he just wants to find that base talent that he can work with and mold to a great wide receiver. And so you can tell that he's going to go to great lengths to get those guys and that he's going to help the team. He said hard work, he's good at that. He's good at hard work. So he said he hit the ground running when he got in Lincoln. He already started recruiting trips as soon as he got here. So he's going to do anything he can to help the program in any way possible. Now, Donovan Raiola, he is definitely not as camera friendly. That was very apparent as soon as you heard him start talking, as soon as he did start talking. He's not as camera friendly as Greg Austin was. He has like short answers. He was kind of right to the point, straight to the point, didn't really beat around the bush. No, flowery language. He wasn't like for Dusko. He wasn't like a character. There was a lack of energy and a lack of character and personality in his discussions. But while I kind of like that as a coach, you kind of want a guy that's just, cuts the BS and gets straight to business. I felt like that might be detrimental in the recruiting side of things. When you're working with young guys, they kind of like gravitate towards that energy. I know a lot of players said that with Verduzco when they met him. They said that just his energy and his character is what drew them to him, and that's what ultimately landed them in Nebraska. Raiola is not that kind of guy, but I mean, I seen a lot of comments too when I was reading through the interview and stuff, that they said that that's kind of how offensive linemen are anyway. They're kind of like, they don't want to be front and center. That's not their role on the field. That's not their role in the media as well. He's like, we're offensive linemen. We're not supposed to talk to the media. The only time you hear about us is if we mess up, that type of thing. So I don't know. Maybe it's not, such a big deal on the recruiting side of thing. If he's trying to bring in those guys, they're going to bond and relate with that kind of attitude. And maybe it's different when he's, one-on-one with guys. It's a little different than, speaking in front of cameras and stuff. So it could just be that he was shy at his first presser or something like that. But there is one story we'll get into a little later when we talk about the portal. One of the guys he kind of sat down with and talked about technique, and that guy liked that part of it. There wasn't a whole lot of story time to go on. It was just right to the point and, how you can get better, that type of thing. I got the feeling that he would like to get right to work. They kind of mentioned it. They're like, you don't like doing these, do you? And he was, no, I don't. But he wanted to get right to work. And that's kind of, like I said, I like that in a coach, that he wants to get straight to the point and try to fix things, try to improve things. And one major point of emphasis for him when he was talking was that he wants the offensive line to be, five guys that are looking through one set of eyes. He wants everybody to be on the same page. He wants everybody to bond in everything they do, whether they're eating, whether they're sleeping, whether they're playing video games. He wants them to be doing everything that they're doing together because they are a unit. They are a singular unit and they need to work together. And spending a lot of time off the field together is going to help on the field. There was one note too that he said he didn't talk to Cam Jurgens at any point since he's been here. That's kind of confusing to me. I thought Frost kind of would have pushed that meeting forward. Maybe Cam didn't want to talk to him. Maybe Raiola just didn't arrive in town soon enough before Cam made the decision to go to the NFL. But I felt like, as I mentioned, when we heard the announcement that Cam Jurgens was going to the NFL, I thought that if they had gotten a chance to sit down and talk, that Raiola, being like with the experience he has with centers specifically, both in college and at the NFL level, that might have influenced his decision to come back. He could have, I don't know, maybe like talked with him, just any kind of meeting with them, I felt like would have been beneficial. We could have really used Cam's experience as an anchor on the offensive line next season, but that's not going to happen. There's still one remaining coaching slot open, so it was going to be either a running back or a special teams. We're not going to get both, it doesn't look like. Either Ron Brown was going to be named the running backs coach, which he's had lots of experience with that, so I wouldn't have a problem with that. A lot of sources also point to a current defensive analyst, Bill Bush, being named as the special teams coach. Looking back through his history, I think he had 1 or 2 seasons where he was a special teams coach specifically. But he seems to be mostly a defensive guy, which those two things are interchangeable. You could get a guy that goes in there and just specifically works on techniques and stuff with special teams. But it's also kind of interesting to hear Frost made comments on Sports Nightly this week that he said it's probably going to be more than one ad, which is a little confusing because there's only one open spot available. So it looks like there may be some staff shuffling around. I don't know if he's going to pull a coach from the defensive side, kind of combine the linebackers into one coach, and then that'll free up another spot, or if he's planning on taking over one of those spots. But he did make a comment that he would like Ron Brown to be in the position that he is currently as like an administration type of guy, because he's like, I pull a lot of life and football experience from that guy, and I would kind of like him to be beneficial to me. Which kind of insinuates that he's not going to be the running backs coach going forward. But he also made the comment that he knows what he wants to do already. He's just waiting to get everybody together to make the announcement. So we don't know. He knows, but we don't know for sure what's going to go on there. If we're going to get one coach, if we're going to get two, I don't know how that's going to work as far as the staffing goes, but we will see that going forward. Another thing we want to talk about is the notable transfer and portal updates, that type of thing. So Phildarius Payne had entered his name into the portal last week, I believe, and he's already removed it from the portal. I don't know if he got a chance to sit down with some coaches and they talked about his potential spots moving forward. I've seen a lot of people say that he wasn't a huge loss to begin with. If he was going to leave, just let him go. He wasn't a big impact on the team, but that experience is valuable, especially with all the guys leaving. All these seniors going, all these other guys that could have come back are now going into the NFL as well. He has potential to develop into a decent edge rusher. I think he's listed as an offensive linebacker at 6'3" and 260 pounds. He could potentially move over into defensive tackle spot. I don't think that he's going to take that nose tackle spot, but he could be a defensive tackle and he could be an edge rusher from there. The front end is already losing Ben Stilley, Damian Daniels, Deontre Thomas is also going to the NFL, I believe. So you're losing a lot of guys off that front line. So maybe that was a point of emphasis in bringing him back. They said you don't have to play the offensive linebacker position like you have been. You can start at one of these defensive tackle spots, which is essentially, an outside linebacker in this scheme, that 3-4 scheme. Essentially is like a extra defensive tackle on some downs. So maybe convince him that he's going to get a lot of play time here, and this would fit him well going into the draft next year. That type of thing. Maybe that's what brought him back. I'm not sure. Adrian Martinez is also announced that he is going to go to Kansas State. So that was kind of something I mentioned, that's what looked most likely. And it seems like that's all things pointed to that direction. That's where he went. So, again, I hope he fits in well there. I hope that he does well. I hope that shoulder heals up fine and he's able to have a stellar year next year. I appreciate everything he did for Nebraska while he was here, and while things didn't pan out for him, while he didn't have the results he wanted, he's still a great person before he's a football player, but he's a great person and a great football player. So I hope that he has success down there. Talking about people that are coming in, so you brought in 2 FCS kicking specialists. You have Timmy Bleekrode and Brian Buschini. I hope I didn't butcher those names too badly, but Bleekrode has experience as both a punter and a place kicker, so he has 3 eligibility years left. He has 3 years of eligibility left, and Brian Buschini also was the FCS punter of the year at Montana, which is Samari Toure's former school. he's going to be the punter. He seems to be nailing the punt. Like he's pretty incredible as far as punts go from what you've seen on tape. So it looks like Bleak Road might come in as the kicker for now, and then Buschini would come in as the punter. We did get I think a walk-on from Kansas, high school walk-on for recruiting. So it looks like they might be bringing that kid in as a walk-on to kind of sit under these guys and learn some experience, let these guys take over, in the future, or maybe it's going to be an open competition as far as field goals go. So who knows? Either way, we're having a ton of specialists come in with a lot of ability and potential. So hopefully kicking is not an issue for us next year. We also got a transfer on the offensive line side of things. So Kevin Williams Jr. is originally from Omaha North. He's coming in from Northern Colorado. He will likely stay at the guard position where he is, and he shows a lot of potential there, which should free up a lot of movement on the offensive line. Since Cam's gone now, you're going to have to get somebody to push into that center spot. Maybe they have another guy in mind for that. But I know that they were talking about wanting to put Turner Corcoran back on the right side as far as tackles. So he had a meeting with Raiola and they discussed technique. So this was the guy I mentioned that Raiola, even though he was lacking the personality and like the energy that you expect to hear from coaches during those pressers, he said that he got a chance to sit down with Donovan Raiola, and they discussed technique and how he could improve, what he's doing wrong, and what he does well. So there's positives and negatives there, but he seemed eager to learn and to adapt, and he seemed to bond with Raiola over that. He liked that aspect of the coach and what they were going to teach him. So like I said, maybe that's a positive that the Donovan comes in and he just kind of tells the guys exactly what he's going to teach them and how he's going to teach them, and it's easy to understand, easy to digest, and they're able to, see the potential there. So he's coming in. I'm sure he's going to start probably right away since he already has some experience, and we need the experience on the offensive line going into next season. You have Tommy Hill coming in as a cornerback from Arizona State. He's listed as a 4-star. He played in 5 games at Arizona State as corner. He played more snaps on special teams than he did on defense. So whether we put him on special teams only or we put him as a defense, it seemed like he could play really any of the cornerback positions, possibly even a safety. But he'll have potential to start next year with all of the guys we're losing. He'll have an immediate opportunity to start there. So I don't know if maybe he wasn't getting the chances that he thought at Arizona State, or he wasn't playing the position he wanted. But either way, we're happy to have anybody that has potential and athletic ability back there. We also picked up a wide receiver from New Mexico State, Isaiah Garcia Castaneda. He ended his freshman season with 37 receptions, totaling over 550 yards and 4 touchdowns over there. I'm guessing that Mickey Joseph coming in had a lot to do with him transferring over here. Looking at that potential development under Mickey Joseph and what he's been able to do with wide receivers, had to play in that decision, I'm guessing. So a lot of transfers going in and out. There's a lot more. Those are just the notable ones that I thought. If that's something you want me to go more in depth with, let me know. We can touch on that on a future episode. But as far as the next couple weeks go, I'm still planning on having an episode next week, kind of looking back at the whole 2021 season as a whole, now that we're out of the weeds with it. But that'll likely be the last episode of the year. We have Christmas and New Year's coming up, so I want to spend some time with the family. I also need to do some work on the computer here, so I won't have access to it to render the videos and whatnot. But we'll be back here after New Year's to cover a lot more topics. We have a lot more off season to go, which is unfortunate for me and for everybody else. I mean, I'm sure people are already wanting the next season to start. But if you have anything that you would like to hear specifically, any topics that you'd like to be covered, or just kind of opinions that you want to be here, I'm open for questions. You can reach out to me in the comments below, or you can reach me on Twitter at Cobsmacked Pod. I can do more in-depth look, as I mentioned, at the recruiting and the transfer portal moves, who we're kind of going after. I know that we were going after an LSU quarterback and he ended up going somewhere else. There's a lot of Rattler ended up going to North Carolina, I think, South Carolina, one of those Carolinas. But I mean, there's lots of movement. There's just nobody really notable, so far as quarterbacks or anything go coming in. But I can do more of those in-depth things, kind of hitting everybody on the recruiting side. It's coming out of high school as well. I can do an early preview for next year's schedule as it sits right now. There's lots of opportunities. So just whatever you guys would like to see, let me know. With that being said, I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and we will see you next time. Go Big Red.